Hello, Stinson Dean.
Hello, friend.
Turn my volume up. Hang on. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. Wow. The beard is really getting there, huh?
I know. I was supposed to trim it. Stephanie doesn't like it when it's this long, but I haven't got around to it.
So one thing I noticed is there's some you must have been painting the house this weekend. You've got some paint in your beard.
Yeah, I'm not able to hide it like I used to, and I'm embracing it. It brings me some credibility.
How old are you?
How big a boy are you?
How big a boy are you?
36.
It's about time. Yeah, these are the nice things you have to look forward to is gray in the beard and reading glasses. We were
Yeah,
my wife
that's
my wife
next.
and I were joking about that last night.
Yeah, that is next. I think my vision. I haven't had a reason to get it checked, but I feel like driving at night. I'm doing a lot of squinting lately, so I'm getting there.
Yeah. I think what happens though, as soon as you start using the reading glasses, you realize how nice it is, and then you don't have them on, and it makes it look, everything look worse.
I can, yeah. What do they call that? Tolerance.
Yeah, something like that.
You build the tolerance.
Hey, what was so? Tell me about Patagonia. Was the fishing just out of this world, or what?
We went to a part where the fishing is tremendous, but it was on the Argentinian side of Patagonia, and fishing was great. Caught 60 fish over the weekend, and I was able to float and then also walk and wade, and it was beautiful. But it wasn't the Patagonia. The landscape wasn't what I had envisioned. It was this real arid, dry, brown, flat, hillish area. Like you could see like the volcano and the Andes Mountains and everything, but that's not where we were fishing. And so I was a little. I mean, I'm going to go back. I thought it was great, but when I think Patagonia, I think of like Mount Colorado style mountains and lush and all this stuff. But really, it's a there's a lot of arid, dry regions.
Plains, like the plains and stuff, right?
Yeah, a lot. It doesn't get as cold as Wyoming, but it reminded me of like Casper, Wyoming. If you've ever driven through there, like a lot of bluffs, like no water whatsoever, no rain, and but man, it was great. We stayed at like a sporting lodge. Oh, I guess I should turn this off. And my wife, she fished with me for a day,
Oh, that's
um,
cool.
but then she was able to stay back and um, get massages and go on horseback rides and everything. Well, I just fished for 5 days straight. It was great.
What's the is it same style of fishing we do here? Same flies and everything?
Yeah, like we used one fly. It was the Parachute Adams, just this little tiny
Of
little
course, yeah.
that little thing, and caught all the fish were top water, and because it was summer down there, and there it was actually funny. There's this floatant called Flyagra, which is a play on Viagra,
That's hilarious.
and it's this liquid that it looks like lighter fluid, it smells like lighter fluid, so it's just like oil and water, and it really puts a ton of buoyancy on your dry fly, and they can't get it down there. So I had some in my bag, and they like the guides like, oh, can we have that? It's like, sure, okay, here's your Flyagra. You just get it on Amazon, and it's like a mixture of like candle wax and lighter
Never,
fluid or
I've
something.
never heard
But
of it.
anyway, it was just like the all the techniques were the same. I mean, I learned a little bit, but like there wasn't really some kind of new strategy. But they knew where to go and what fish or what the fish were eating, and so it was just awesome. I got burned to a crisp, and
Really?
yeah,
Not
the
a lot of
sun.
ozone down there.
I don't know if it was like equator like angle or what, but I got burned worse than I've ever been burnt. And but man, yeah, we're gonna go back. It was awesome, and the little lodge we stayed at is super couple friendly. Like if your wife doesn't want to fish, there's stuff going on. So
Now you fly into Buenos Aires, right?
yeah, fly into Buenos Aires and then you take a domestic flight. It's about an hour and a half flight to Patagonia.
Did you stay in Buenos Aires at all?
We spent 1 day on the front end and 3 days on the back end. My wife loved it. I'm like a big homebody, so I don't like shopping and museums and walking and all that. But she let me fish for 5 days in Patagonia. So we did a whole Buenos Aires thing. So yeah, that was cool. It was kind of got this like Paris vibe, I'm told. And we got a tour from a tour guide and saw all their government stuff and their kind of. We learned in the 1800s, Argentina had the biggest GDP in the world. For like one year in like 1896 or something like that.
From mining, I would guess.
It was British folks coming over and building monuments. Like these buildings that they built were so elaborate, and they imported 100% of the material from Europe to build. It was fascinating, but there was just exorbitant wealth being dumped from the Western world into Argentina, and just construction tends to do that.
Yeah. Well, it is 12:02. Let's kick this thing off. Welcome, everybody. It is Friday, April 8th. This is the Smart Market call, as smart as you can get with two guys talking about fly fishing so far. So we have Stinson Dean with us of Deacon Lumber. Hello, Stinson.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Absolutely great to have you here. I'd be remiss if we didn't chat a little bit about the market right now, because wow, what a difference a week makes.
Yep.
Let's talk, a little bit about market, and then the big topic for today though is social media. Really, what is it? I kind of want to redefine it for the lumber industry, because I think we're missing out in the lumber industry by not taking advantage of what it really can do for you. But that's where we're going to get to next. Southern Yellow Pine is leading the charge lower here. We just had a transaction just before the call here, 2x4, number 2 and better, 16-foot Southern Yellow Pine, $800 FOB the mill.
Yeah, pine led the way up. It was stubbornly and confusingly high, going all the way back to October of last year, but it had this premium to spruce I couldn't figure out.
I got an idea on that one, though.
What'd you say?
I have an idea on that.
Why?
So I think this entire market we've gone through for the last 4, 5, 6 months is it's not going to happen to me this time mentality, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely. So if you look at when COVID started, everybody stayed home. We did projects. What does that mean? You're running to the box stores. The box stores business were off the charts. What kind of projects were they? There were a lot of decks, treated lumber, right? The treaters, they blew out. We ran out of treated wood, basically. So you come back into the fall, the treaters are like, well, recent memory, that's what happened. It's going to happen again. They go, I'm going to get in front of this one. And they started building the inventory. And, back early January, we had big inquiries for Southern Pine. We couldn't fill. It was like right at the turn of the market is when we saw these massive inquiries for pine from the treaters. So
I can see that. And high prices cure high prices always is true. This time it came to fruition quicker and at a lower price. Like you said, I call it fool me once inventory management. You know,
that's it.
fool me once and you're not going to fool me twice. And but also I think buyers that really ultimately did a great job navigating this market, because if people were pretty light at as prices skyrocketed, there wasn't a lot of volume at the higher prices like we
Seemed like
saw.
an air up there.
Yeah, like there wasn't a lot of transactions at the higher price. Uh, it was exacerbated by lack of shipments, but buyers, again, fool me once from the downfall last year. Like, we're just going to go lean, and it is what it is. We're in a dollar cost average on the way up, and so now it's rolled over, and Pines led the way down because it led the way up. It had this big premium. We have pine production coming on every quarter, it seems like, for the next 3 years. Um, and so buyers, I think, while the sticker price got pretty high, I think we're seeing with this bounce right now in futures, there's lumber that needs to get bought.
Oh, for sure.
And there's budgets that haven't been spent, that the lumber budgets, and good for the buyers for waiting out. Now the market's come back to them, and I think clearly folks have started to step in to buy. I don't think anyone's buying anything extra, but there's a lot of lumber budgets out there that's unspent, which is very different than last year. Last year, when we rolled over, it was in the summer, but like folks had pot committed to $900,000 lumber, and they had to get that out the door and turn it back into cash, and that took months and months and months. This time around, they have a lot more dry powder, so I do think we'll have a little bit more of a stable ride to the bottom, if not a higher floor. I'm not quite sure yet, but I do know the big difference between now and 10 months ago is there's a lot more cash in bank accounts than there is lumber in the inventory.
And everybody's used to these higher prices. And I agree with what you said about the floor. Floor is definitely going to be higher. That's what inflation is, right? You have the cost to run your mill is going to be higher. The cost to move that product is higher. Everything is more expensive. So I think the floor is definitely moved up. I would say the previous floor was probably somewhere between 300 and 350. I bet it's up $100 from there. I bet it's
what species generally.
I think, across the board. I'm just as a general area.
Yeah. Like if you're like maybe looking at futures or something. Yeah, I think spruce is higher. I think if we puke here, and one of the things we've never had to question in the last 24 months is demand, and now we're questioning it.
Right.
Doesn't mean the answer is demand is off or going to shrink. It's just we're questioning it. We're not sure, which brings a pause to behavior until we kind of get some confidence. What does the housing market look like at 5% plus interest rates?
Well, we do know there's no mass immigration out of the United States. Like, we still need these households. Is it going to be a short-term pause in some activity? There's some interesting data out there, and this we can actually roll into the social media world. A friend of ours, Greg Riley, had put something on LinkedIn, put out on social media about an article he saw that there's more homes under construction right now than there were in like 2005 or 2007. I don't remember the exact.
Ever.
Yeah. Which that just tells you that there's some inventory that just needs to get to the market. I was thinking about this. I was talking to, I don't remember. No, I wasn't talking to anyone. I was just thinking about it while I was driving from downtown. I live north of downtown Chicago.
There's those voices in your head. You can't remember if they're real.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those. But all of a sudden, I'm driving past these big condo buildings they're just about finished. And for some reason, something clicked in my brain going, wow, there's a bunch of supply about ready to hit the market here in Chicago. In the city, there's a bunch of condos about to hit the market.
If they can get garage doors for the parking garage,
Well, they need one door. This is a big. They need one door for their one garage door.
Yeah, I was in Winter Park, Colorado last week, and I posted a picture on my Twitter. These beautiful townhomes or condos, kind of like units, all attached in one building, completely done, except they had a blue tarp over their garage doors.
Yeah,
And you could
I've
fix
heard
up.
this. I've heard this. Yeah.
I don't think you can get your occupancy certificate without a garage door. And that, if you think about that, that's cash, or that's inventory that is not cash on the builder's balance sheet that they can't turn and go start the next project. Um, and you got to imagine the fear. Every other time mortgage rates have risen, the housing market has cooled, either some or significantly, and they're rising now. I'm in the camp that it's really not going to make a big enough dent to cool demand to be below supply of homes. But you got to be nervous if you're sitting on this in process inventory under construction homes and mortgage rates are going up, and are my buyers going to cancel? Can they afford it? Yada, yada, yada. So, that's where we're questioning demand for the first time. And, from the focus being social media, because, we love to talk markets. My takes, you'll find me on Twitter. I, I, I get somewhat active on LinkedIn.
Well, hang on. Before we get going down that road, how do you define social media? What is social media in your world? What does it mean to you?
Oh man, it's a very to me, it's just a curated platform um, for public access to whatever content you want to put out. So like, it's a way to engage on a mass scale with people, with content. Number one, that's curated, both professionally and personally. But ultimately, it's a communication tool to engage um, in everything from lumber markets to political debates on a mass and easy scale. I mean, to communicate with the same amount of people we communicate with now, you'd have to. I mean, it's two-way communication. I was going to say you'd have to buy a commercial spot, but the reality is you'd have to like meet people at the like hundreds and hundreds of people every day at the Moose Lodge or something. So your reach to socially interact,
Well, I think you just said something really interesting, which is curated content. If let's just go back in time, 25 years, and uh, how did we get our information? You know, we've got it from newspapers. The prompt information was, oh, your daily newspaper or your daily news show.
or yeah, your nightly news in your newspaper,
Nightly
or
news.
if you were an active in finance and active in the markets, I would assume you would have to call a bunch of people all day long.
And if you wanted a deep dive, you would get a periodical, the Economist magazine or something, even a weekly. And then if you really wanted a deep dive, you bought a book, right?
A what?
So, yeah, exactly, a book. Okay, that was 25 years ago. You fast forward today. All that content actually 25 years ago was curated by whoever was publishing it. So it could be very focused to whatever opinion they had. Now you fast forward to today, and we have the phenomena of social media, which the amount of content. First off, the word content is new to my vocabulary in the last, say, 8 years,
Right.
and it's the journalism. It is the actual articles, the written words, the data. And then you have this society, social, that takes the content and can curate it into a stream that they see as important. And
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like algorithms on your feed and things like that.
well, that's where we're really at in today's world. But I guess the point is we have blown wide open who can control or curate the content, right?
Yeah. Access. Yes. The access to information and the access to content. And I've described social media as a net positive, which implies there's a lot of negative to social
Yes.
media.
This is exactly where I want to go next,
Yeah.
because we can touch on the negative. That's so easy. You talk about, the algorithms and spitting out fake news and trying to spin things the wrong way, or not spin
Well,
a way.
think about markets where we are. Lumber is very niche, but bond markets, Fed. If someone hacks Jerome Powell's Twitter and says, "Hey, we're cutting rates," like instantly headline, algorithm traders trade, everyone panics, and or someone hacks the president's account. You don't know it for 30 minutes, and they're spitting out all this stuff. Like the speed at which our markets move based off of what used to be headlines, and some insiders would kind of know the headlines before it was published. Now it's real time, and it's a benefit, but it brings with it its own risks. But from a financial markets and disinformation or early information that's not quite right, to me it's increased volatility in the markets, because way more people are getting information quicker than
For sure.
years ago.
So I'm glad we've acknowledged the negatives. Let's talk about the positives. The positives are the speed with which you can get information. And the key, though, to this whole phenomena is, who do I follow? Who do I listen to? And as we were getting ready for the call, we talked a little bit last night. When we, talked to have you on, you're like, well, I don't put that much stuff out. And I'm like, well, I'm not really interested so much in what you put out, Stinson. I want to hear, who do you follow? What do you listen to? How do you get the positive out of it? The net positive, what do you do?
Yeah. I use, when we talked yesterday, I'm like, I don't have a business that would benefit from social media marketing in the traditional sense. My biggest benefit from social media, and I largely live on Twitter, is I'm getting access to niche experts on housing, supply chains, lumber, macro, international, all this stuff from folks I wouldn't even know existed. They work at hedge funds, or they're an economist at an industry think tank. And before Twitter or social media, I would never get insight into their thoughts. And what's really the best part of Twitter for me is kind of the real-time tweeting of jobs reports, or championship basketball games, or invasions, international skirmishes, and like this invasion of Ukraine, like we're seeing on TikTok, like real time battles and bombs and carnage and bravery, and folks were broadcasting the Russian tanks like movements on Twitter. It was in TikTok. It was wild. And so for me, if you can, to use the word curate again, I've curated my feed with folks I follow. And as these events happen, or a report comes out, or maybe they publish a blog, folks start to develop a track record. Like, I like the way this person thinks. I like their logic. They were right about X, Y, and Z. And so you kind of get this track record of whatever they happen to say or think or project next. You can give it a certain weighting because you have a history. And so there's niches on Twitter. There's housing Twitter. There's a very small lumber Twitter community. There's a ton of, we call it FinTwit, financial Twitter. There's literal Twitter celebrities, right?
Yeah.
Who have made a whole brand off of putting their thoughts out in 240 characters on everything from jobs reports to dialing into credit card data. And last economic cycle, that was kind of blogs was kind of our first take. Like folks were writing blogs and
Yep.
crunching the data themselves. Now it's moved to these social media platforms. So the information I can get from experts in their field that are way smarter than me and way smarter than other people I talk to in the lumber industry. And it helps me form a macro view that I don't get from being in the trenches all the time.
One of the things I like about LinkedIn is, once again, you can curate your content, but then you can see who's behind the content. You can look at that person's profile and see what their history is. An interesting thing I've learned is lumber became very famous and very popular in the last 2 years. I've been reached out to by a lot of journalists, and they are asking me, first off, can you teach me about the lumber market? And it struck me as really bizarre that this person is going to write an article that's going to get spread all over, and they're going to come off as somewhat of an expert, yet they don't know anything about lumber. And they're reaching out to people to get quotes and to formulate this story.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I ended up going on national TV a year ago in April, last April, because I tweeted about lumber, and at the time I was one of the only folks like putting competent thoughts together on lumber, and it was in the news. Lumber prices, everyone could walk into Home Depot and see it. The thing about lumber, it's one of the most pure commodities to the end user. Like the lay person doesn't buy oil barrels, but the lay person
right,
does buy 2x4s. It's
correct.
like largely untouched. Even gasoline, there's a lot of mixtures and whatnot. But gas and lumber, they make a lot of headlines. So, but only because I was on Twitter did the Bloomberg reach out and say, hey, can you explain what's going on? And if there wasn't social media, there would be so much talent and wisdom and insight missed or kind of kept to themselves. And a lot of what I use social media for, you're talking about who I follow, and is I'll put ideas out and I'll be critiqued by the community. And the ability to kind of float an idea or a thesis and then have people poke holes in it, like literally instantly, it's helpful. If you think about if you're in a war room, a Monday meeting war room, and you just have this group think of people just in your business who all have the same incentives and political bureaucracies and who's right, who's wrong on your Monday morning pricing meeting, or I can go to Twitter and really get an objective view of the tone, where people heads are at from the DIY person putting projects off to the national developer that's reaching out, trying to figure out how they're going to secure engineered wood. And that won't happen in your silo. By putting your thoughts out on Twitter, you start creating a track record for yourself and other people and building trust, but also you get feedback, and people really don't care how you feel about their feedback, which is incredibly valuable. It's hard to get, and maybe in your own company.
So I'm going to say that we're in, as far as the lumber industry goes, about the second inning of social media. The feedback that we've gotten as Materials Exchange for the content we're putting out and our noon shows has been nothing short of remarkable. We'll be at a convention and people will come up to me and I have no idea who they are. And they're like, that was a great show. We really enjoyed seeing so-and-so on it. I was like, oh, wow. I'm glad you watched. The stuff you're doing on Twitter. So why I'm saying this is it's only going to get bigger and it's only going to get better and worse.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, that net effect. Hopefully the spread grows to the better side. But yeah, there'll be some negativity, and it's like back in the day, message boards were a big deal, but they were anonymous. Like you said, LinkedIn, like you can kind of vet someone if they make a comment and see who they are and who else they know. But the future for social media, I think it's in lumber specifically. If you can bring value, and that's kind of what I think about when I tweet, is largely I'm like, I hope this is bringing value to somebody, this piece of information or this outlook or this thought. Um, and if you're kind of just doing and saying the same stuff everybody else is, you're not really gonna make a difference or have an impact if that's kind of your goal of being on social media. For materials exchange, the biggest value, without a doubt, is the insight into like, hey, this was a transaction that went on today. You open the show with there's an $800 16-foot Cellular pine. Like, no one has ever had that kind of transparency in real time to the lumber market, which is why we love and hate the lumber market. It's not transparent, and like that, social media allows you to get the word out versus a newsletter, or God forbid, you print it out and you put it in an envelope and mail it to people like 25 years ago, right? I heard you guys used to have to do that. And you had to, like, when you went on road trips to visit customers, you had to like have a map with you with like all these folded
Yeah, it was
words.
this weird thing.
Yeah, I like you had printed out these map ticks and everything. I don't know how you did trading without iPhones and email, but maybe the fax machine was a big deal. But the fact that social media, it's one, you're one source, but you can touch so many people all at once with ultimately real-time pricing data. I mean, I log into all the shows because the people you guys have on they're legends in our industry. We know that. I know that. You know that. But like all the other people further down the supply chain have no idea who those people are. And I'm sitting here watching, like, these folks have no idea. Like, these guys are legends and they know what they're talking about. They've been there, done that. And to get access to their viewpoint is really amazing.
So let's just talk strategy for a second, and we can wrap this up. We're getting to the 30-minute point. The first strategy recommendation I have is actively source your content and continually update your sources. If you sit and look at the same source all the time because it makes you feel good, it's not going to be that much value to you. So constantly change. And I think you made a great point about you should interact. Like, you get the feedback, interact, because you're going to get feedback back. It becomes the two-way channel. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know how to use Twitter. I don't know how to use this. And engagement. Let's just say you're a 60-year-old and you've got a grandkid who's a TikToker or whatever. Have them show you how to use it. You'd be surprised at how easy it is. And once it becomes part of your day-to-day.
The market intelligence you can glean for making connections with people you would never, we've said it a million times, you just would never come across these people ever. And you can kind of, the market intel is there's an unbelievable advantage to being active on social media and building a network of trusted sources that you would otherwise never meet.
And call out the people that are not trusted. I mean, I think that we owe it as a society and as a lumber group to, if someone is in here spreading false information, to call them out.
Yeah, we call that, the young folks here, Mike, I don't know if you fall in that category, we call that bringing receipts. If someone has said something and they contradict themselves, that's what screenshots are for. You bring receipts to the comment section, it's game over.
I love it. Well, for everyone who's listening to this show, number one, you are ahead of the curve. You're probably in the top 5 or 10% in the lumber industry because you're already using it. And I can't go back to my comment about the second inning enough. Before you know it, we're going to be in the fifth inning of this. And if you're in the front of the curve, you will definitely have benefit from this. By the time we get towards the later innings, there'll be a new game, and you'll be in the early innings of that new game. Everything changes, everything evolves. There's no doubt. But please give us at Materials Exchange feedback so we can provide the content that you want to hear. I know Stinson would love feedback at any time. What I can tell you is we will be publishing pricing data in the very near future. When a trade happens on MX, you're going to hear about it. And that's really, really valuable.
I've never like confirmed transactions in real time. That's definitely never been done and hugely valuable because it's all intel. So yeah, I agree. And getting comfortable with social media, you don't have to be active, and have content and the whole thing. But if you understand how to navigate it, who to follow, kind of curate your feed to people who have different viewpoints. You said top 5-10% ahead of the curve. I would argue the top 5 to 10% of the smartest lumber people are on social media. So
Oh yeah.
if you want like top high end analysis and insight, those people are out there. You and your team and the folks you guys bring on, and then on Twitter, there's a pretty savvy community. Like the smartest traders, I think, are on social media. Not all of them are vocal, but I know they're all on there, and that's where the cutting edge information is.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Stinson. Really appreciate the time. One market wrap comment. What do you think? Are you bullish, bearish? Where are you at right now?
We've stopped dropping. I think I can confidently say that, which is good. Is it a dead cat bounce? Are we going to trade sideways? I don't know yet, but I really feel like we've stopped going down. I think so. I'm not worried about lower prices next week. I don't know about 3 weeks from now, but I think we've found some liquidity here on the in bids. So that doesn't help anybody, but
No,
I don't know.
actually, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm very uneasy about making a real call, but I tell you what you can do. Next week, you can listen into all our shows and find out what experts like Matt Beamer and Greg Riley think. Get the analysis of Matt Lehman. Love him, hate him, whatever. Matt Lehman puts it out there. And then Greg Kuda on Tuesdays with the lumber futures. His analysis on lumber futures is, it's gold.
Does Matt trade? Kuda does, right?
Kuda trade. Matt, no, Matt's more. He brings his perspective of the human psyche to the lumber market. I think it's interesting. I like it. I like it a lot. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you next Friday. Have a great, safe weekend.